Emily Elizabeth, and I'm the host of the What Fulfills You podcast, a show for and about individuals always seeking to be their best selves. On this show, we talk all about building the mindset, finding the right careers, creating meaningful relationships, and so much more. Welcome to the What Fulfills You podcast. I came across you guys, I think because of Kira Jones. Yeah, she was on the podcast as well.
Okay.
And so I love what you guys are doing. I love the concept. And yeah, definitely into athletic wear and just like making it cute and, you know, actually having style to it. So I feel like it's all aligned.
Yeah. We're super excited about it. We love Kira.
Yeah.
She's great. But yeah, it's been a crazy journey so far. I mean, the activewear is sort of just like the tip of the iceberg for us. I feel like it was more of a vehicle for us to build a community and incorporate that whole like background that we wanted to in terms of like giving back. We both grew up as dancers. She is still a professional dancer in New York. And then we went to an all-girls school from 7th grade through 12th. And it's just had like such a huge impact on us. And I think when we started the brand, we were like, not only are we going to do like X, Y, and Z different in terms of like the clothing, but like we would really like to use this brand in order to like make an impact with these girls. And so that's a huge part of what we're doing too.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to rewind, backtrack, and get into your guys' like actual childhood stories because you guys grew up as dancers, you guys are sisters. And I feel like when we talk about where we're from and how we grew up, it really plays a role in understanding, okay, why we might think a certain way, how we approach life. I grew up in a small hometown in Pennsylvania and then lived in LA for school and then came here. So I went from small town to two big cities. And I feel like that really shaped my trajectory. But I'm so curious, what was that like for you guys?
Yeah. I mean, I'm the youngest of three girls. So Caroline is my older sister, but then we have one more sister. And growing up, I fell in love with dance right away. I mean, I started when I was 18 months old, like when you can walk. Our dance teacher took me and I fell in love with it. Dance is very disciplined. I think that is now why I am a perfectionist and a people pleaser, which is something I'm actively working on. But when I look back in childhood, you know, I always wanted to make people happy, do the right thing, perform well, be the best. Like I really just wanted to focus in on dance, and that really made me happy.
You always put a lot of pressure on yourself. I feel like, and I couldn't be any more different in that way. It's so funny. I have to tell her to like take your foot off the gas a little bit in terms of like the pressure you put on yourself. I, on the other hand, like I couldn't care less like what someone thinks. I'm like, I'm not gonna go to something or say yes to something to please someone else. It just honestly, it would serve me a bit more if I did that sometimes. But I just like don't. And that's I think like why we balance each other out so well. But growing up, I think like back to the whole growing up thing, we were so close. All three of us girls, my parents, we are like a very family first type of gang. Our parents were like incredibly hands-on with us. They just like prioritized us over everything else. My older sister was a big athlete. Lizzy and I were traveling around the country to dance. And our parents were just like putting us in the best programs, putting us in the best schools, like sacrificing, I think, a lot of like their own lives.
Social life, free time.
But we're just like obsessed with them, and we owe a lot of, I guess, like our mindset to them for sure.
Is that kind of where Daughter Lessons, like the name came in? Can you like share how that name came about? Because I feel like just as you're sharing your upbringing, it's like, okay, I'm putting the pieces together.
It was definitely more of an evolution, the name. I think like I said, we're very close. We're three girls in our family. And we're all like very close with both our parents, but our dad is like kind of like our hero, I guess. We're just like all obsessed with him. And I think it rolled off the tongue one day. Like we were all talking about how close we are and how lucky we feel. And he was like, you guys should give Daughter Lessons or something funny. And we would all like bring it up as a joking way. Like, oh, like Daughter Lessons or this or that. And then it just turned into DL. And then when we wanted to start a brand, we were like, DL would be cool. Why don't we use Daughter Lessons? And so it was kind of like reverse
snowballed.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Did you guys grow up near New York, or what part of?
We're from Rochester, New York, so about 6 hours upstate.
Okay.
Near Buffalo. So we always say we're from upstate New York, and people are like, Westchester?
Westchester is not.
No, just about like 5 more hours northwest.
Western New York?
Yeah. But we didn't come to the city that much growing up. But then once I got accepted into Pace's dance program, I knew that this is where I would be. And I do think it was quite a shell shock coming from, I mean, we're not from as small of a town as probably where you're from in Pennsylvania, but moving to New York, it was like, whoa, this is a huge jump.
Right.
And at 17.
Yeah.
That's so
true. It was a crazy shift, but I loved it right away.
Yeah.
And I still love it. I think it's the reason why our brand is where it is because of the people I've met here, the connections I've made, the network that we've grown. It would probably be near impossible to grow this business the way we have somewhere else.
Right.
So I feel so lucky that I got to come here at a younger age and start planting those roots. It's so funny. Like my dance friends that I went to college with are now, Peloton instructors or big influencers. Like they're doing amazing things. And I feel so lucky that New York has given us so much opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. What was the appeal for both of you guys? Because did you guys talk about wanting to both be in the city eventually? Or was it kind of natural that you ended up here after school and then like she came here for school?
Yeah, I mean, I've just always been obsessed with living in New York.
Yeah.
I was like the little girl that romanticized moving to New York and living in New York and obsessing over like fashion.
Yeah.
And I was always like sketching and drawing when I was a kid. I just am like a big like
editing
imagination girl. I would like go to camp, sleepaway camp.
Yeah.
And everyone would bring like different things to read in their bunk, and I would bring magazines and like edit them in my bunk with my flashlight at like 10 years old.
So
and I kept like stacks of Vogue and Teen Vogue in my bedroom and all that stuff. I was just obsessed with it. And then as soon as I left school, I went to school about an hour and a half outside of the city. So I kept coming into the city every summer and during semesters for internships.
Gotcha.
So it just felt like a natural progression.
Yeah.
And we're just obsessed with New York.
And I really can't imagine.
I love the city. I love the city.
I can't imagine living somewhere not being so close to you. Like that's something we often talk about now. Not that often, but I really can't imagine living in a different place than her now.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. Like in a different city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be crazy.
Well, with like FaceTime and stuff, it would be fine, but like it's definitely different.
Yeah. I feel lucky that I get to see her so often and I don't know, live in New York together.
Yeah.
Not physically together. We live separately.
Yeah.
But in the same city.
Yeah. What do you guys feel? So speaking on New York though, because it's fascinating because you guys are in your 20s as well. Yeah.
Just turned 30.
Oh my gosh, you look so good. I mean, you look so young. I feel like I'm on this whole like I just turned 27 a couple months ago, but I feel like I've been on this whole like everything on Instagram, like on the explore page is all like skincare right now and like anti-aging and like
God.
So I'm on this whole like, wow, people like look so good. I can just tell like when people take care of themselves, or it's also like I feel like with dance and being athletic and just being in that sphere already, you kind of are just naturally active. But on New York, I feel like there's always a polarizing opinion on whether like New York is actually great and like is it actually worth the hype and everything. So I'm always hyping up New York, but I have a bias because I love the city. I think Manhattan, and Brooklyn too, but just the city, there's just so much to do.
Right.
And so, like you said, with business and when you're starting anything, the best place is here, right, of the opportunities. But what is your like personal take, because you guys have been here way longer than I have, on New York from a lens of almost 10 years and, more than 5 years.
How many years have you been here?
Almost 3 years.
Okay.
In the summer, it'll be 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it really, like anything in life, just depends on what your objective is and what you want out of life. It's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's why people don't like it. It's because if your objective isn't like to surround yourself with people like constantly upping their own game and like moving and shaking, and you don't want to be in sort of like the epicenter of like culture, then don't live here.
Totally.
But like everything else, it doesn't come without like its own sacrifices.
Right.
So we were just talking about this, like New York is absolutely incredible, and like we wouldn't have the growth that we've seen so quickly if we didn't live here. I do believe that. But like we are constantly making sacrifices because we live in New York that other entrepreneurs across the country don't have to deal with. Like,
can you share? Yeah. What examples you can think of?
First of all, we launched this company out of my apartment.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a fulfillment center. And so all of our inventory was like literally coming out of my oven. It was into my shower. I couldn't even get to my toilet.
Yeah.
Like, it was insane.
Yeah.
And we don't have the luxury of like storage or space, or we know people that are doing like amazing things. They also have like a fulfillment center in their garage.
Yeah.
Where they're like, you know, have a huge organization system and they have their own supply chain working where they can fulfill their own orders, which is like a huge cost and like next step as a business that we, because we live in New York, we're forced to take much earlier than probably other brands that are, say, in like the Midwest.
Right.
And like, let's be real, New York is the most inconvenient city in the world.
Yeah.
Like, we are just like on our hands and knees, like lugging things to events back and forth. Like, you can never get a taxi. Your luggage can't fit in an Uber. It's just like
it's so funny. Like anytime, I swear, we have like a pop-up and we, you know, bring our own racks, we bring our own signage, we bring our own hangers, we bring obviously inventory.
Yeah.
It's raining or her street is closed and like, you know, my elevator's broken. There's something where it really reminds you that it's not so easy to just do a pop-up.
Right.
Or just, you know, I wanna do a pop-up here. It's like, okay, well, that means we have to physically, the two of us, bring everything that's involved. So to that point, we don't have a car. We can just throw everything in the back. You know, we're getting Ubers. It's expensive. We're physically carrying everything. But then again, like Caroline said, it's the trade-off of being in the city where you can meet someone at a coffee shop and they are in private equity and they know they're looking to buy, you know, or like take a piece in a company, or they have such a relatable story to share in how they've seen other businesses grow. You know, it's just, that's the possibility of New York that you don't get other places.
Did it ever did it ever occur in your guys' mind to maybe leave New York for that reason in order to, because that's
never.
Right, and that's what I love, right? Because that's what I'm saying. Like, I can imagine someone sitting here right now is like, okay, well, instead of taking those sacrifices, why don't you guys just leave and go maybe towards like Long Island?
True.
You know what I mean? So that's why, like, what's your pushback on that? Because I just love hearing it from other people who are also just as passionate about New York.
It's just like the benefits outweigh the cost. Like a cost benefit analysis that we all love.
Yeah.
Life is a series of compromises and like a cost benefit analysis. Like, you can't have it all at once. And if you are, then good for you. But I feel like for this time in our life, at this point of what we're doing, like, we're already like hustle culture, grind culture. Lizzy and I have dedicated ourselves to like growing this thing.
Yeah.
And so where else would we rather be?
Totally.
You know? I guess if you're in a different industry, like friends of mine that are in beauty or tech, of course, like you're in LA or Silicon Valley, that makes total sense. But like but for what we're doing,
industry specific.
It's New York.
That is true too. I feel like a lot of people forget about industry specifics and how New York really caters, especially to fashion and just like style and things like that. So it's hard to actually, you know, in my opinion, I just came from Miami, like I said, but I couldn't imagine kickstarting that there, even though people like to say that, okay, with technology and social media, you can be based anywhere. I still personally believe like there's a lot of benefits like New York has that a city like as much as Miami has grown does not have in this, you know, in the same way.
Totally.
Yeah. I'll just finish that out by saying like even us going outside and looking at what people are wearing on the street influences like what we would design. And I don't think that would be happening in other cities. Like we take, right.
I was just
you're like
thinking
looking
about
around, you're like,
Miami fashion. Like, no.
You didn't leave the Florida airport?
Like inspired?
No.
But I mean, in New York, we get inspiration from everybody, like on the streets, in our workout classes, you know, anywhere, which again, I don't think you can get in every city.
No, we love it here.
Couldn't agree more. Okay, I want to go into initial career starts and how that parlayed into daughter lessons and how you guys took, you know, what you initially learned from your earlier career days into what you do today. So what did you get started in first, like after school?
So in hindsight, now I see it this way, but like I had the benefit of not really knowing what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And I think that actually played to my advantage like long term. But I knew that I was like business savvy.
Okay.
I knew that I was really great with people. I've always had like a very strong intuition, and I understand people like on an emotional intelligence level. And so I figured I would just go into like sales. So I was a double major in business and public relations.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then after school, I went into real estate. And I was like, I'm going to do the biggest, baddest thing in New York that I can possibly think of. And I'm just going to like show everyone. And I was like, I think that's real estate. Where else to do it than New York? So I moved, went into real estate, learned like so much. Just like about the culture of New York City real estate and how cutthroat it can be. And it's a steep learning curve, but it's definitely worth it. Eventually moved over to another firm where I got into more of like investments on the real estate side, which was definitely more stimulating for me. I really liked that aspect. I loved negotiating. I loved contracts. I loved being on like the transactional side, closing deals, working like in that really like hustle culture. I loved it. But I always over time like had this like, not a voice, but like this just feeling like I'm missing something and I'm feeling creatively stifled, if you will. And there was like always that side of me, that creative side where like when I was a dancer and when I was a kid, like I was very tuned into that side.
Yeah.
But when I was working in like corporate, I felt like I'd abandoned that side of me. And during the pandemic, that voice got louder and louder. And when we had to leave the office and work from home, I was like, wait, when you take the camaraderie away from my job, I'm actually really unhappy with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And this is a really crazy opportunity right now, this moment in time with the pandemic, for us all to stop and reevaluate like what we want to do with our lives. And so I was like, this is crazy. Can I like pivot right now? So we really just started like talking and brainstorming. And then it came to be, I just completely changed industries, knew nothing about this industry.
Were you ever working both at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay. So how long was that until you decided to like fully?
Yeah. For about 9 months.
Okay.
I was doing both. I would have done it for longer if I could have.
Yeah.
But I worked on a very like hands-on job, and it got to the point where we were like dealing with manufacturers overseas, and I was like managing phone calls with different like logistics centers, and I was doing it all from home because it was during the pandemic.
Right.
But then when my company called us back to New York, they're like, everyone back in the office Monday to Friday. I was like, guys, I'm fully running another company. Like, you're going to hear me in the pit, like on the phone with someone overseas, and you're going to be like, Caroline, what are you doing?
Yeah, totally.
So I had to be like upfront and honest about it.
Right.
And I'm happy that I did, because I ended up leaving on a great note. And like all of my former bosses are just like, I think the world of them.
Yeah.
So I feel fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she was in a very corporate setting, total 180, like being a dancer, going to school for dance. I was, nannying, babysitting, teaching dance 5 days a week, going on auditions, which obviously you don't get paid for, but is a job. Like you have to show up for auditions. You don't get paid until you book the job, but that's part of the job. And then I actually worked a little bit at Lululemon. I kind of just like bopped around. So when we started this, I didn't even really know how to send like a proper email. Like I have work ethic for days. Like tell me to do something and I will get it done.
Yeah.
But there was so much about business that I had no idea about.
Right.
So thank God Caroline came from a background of being, assertive, confident in a business setting, knowing how to, communicate, build a certain rapport with clients. And for me, I was just like, I'm usually just being told what to do as a dancer and then doing it. Yeah. So I think that I've grown a lot in that way. Like I've grown more than I possibly thought I could, but came from like a totally different scenario of being like a freelance dancer and doing everything to like make ends meet.
Yeah.
And like both worlds have served us so well. Like
totally.
We wouldn't be where we are without her background in like dance and entertainment and like that whole world.
Yeah.
And the same for where I came from. So it actually has been great.
Yeah. Good balance.
how did you guys take your network and your connections like in the dance world and just people that you knew in business in general in New York and start to expand? Because I know you guys get into anthropology, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So like, how was that process? Because I feel like when listeners are listening and maybe they're thinking of a small business and a product-based business too, when there's direct to consumer, as we know, but then there's also wholesale and then actually selling in retail stores, right? And so a lot of people never know like making that jump or even like getting in the door with these contacts, right? So what was that process for you guys in terms of like getting like, outreach and whatnot?
So organic.
Yeah.
It happened so organically. I mean, when we started this, we were going to launch direct to consumer.
Yeah.
And we had planned to reach out to some people that we knew that were in the health, wellness, fitness community. Like Lizzy had mentioned, like friends of hers from the past, some of my friends. So yeah, we started direct to consumer. We started reaching out to people, but it wasn't until
organically gifting and stuff like that.
Yeah. And like everything from such a place of authenticity. Like the people that we're reaching out to at this point had known us for years.
Yeah.
And we were, in the front row of every workout class that they had. And we were like championing them from afar. So I'd say 95% of the time, everyone we asked was like, I can't wait to help you guys. Like, this is so great.
Yeah.
Just let me know what we can do. Which feels so amazing.
Yeah.
And we'll give it right back if anyone ever asks us for help, for sure. But so we got contacted. A supermodel actually was wearing our stuff.
No way. Who?
Hillary Rhoda.
Oh, no way.
So
okay, cool.
We're like just major fans of hers.
Was it through gifting or?
Yeah, so we got in touch with her over Instagram.
Okay.
And she was wearing our stuff in a Tracy Anderson class.
Okay.
And
in New York or?
In LA.
Oh, LA.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it kind of just like caught like wildfire. We got approached by them, and then we got approached by a wholesale rep who had said like, hey, I've seen you guys in these studios. I'd like to take you to other retailers.
Yeah.
And so that's how we got in Anthropology. We're in Newly, which is their like rental service through Urban, launching on a very major retailer this month. Which is very scary.
Exciting.
It's so much work behind it,
but yeah, organically. And then like anything, once it started happening, it sort of like fell into a process.
Yeah.
And now we have a process.
Yeah. So how'd you guys figure out the wholesale process as, like basically like newbies? Because that's like, especially going into a big retailer and then Anthropology and all of that. Like what was the learning curve for you guys? Because I even experienced that with the card game and journal, like just understanding, like wholesale pricing and, minimum order quantity, like all of that, right? So I'm always curious to know like other people's experiences with that.
Gosh, I mean, at first, like Caroline said, we were just going to be direct to consumer. So at first it was more of it was definitely a sacrifice to do wholesale because we didn't factor in those costs at first because that was not at the forefront.
And I feel like that is usually
how it goes.
The learning curve, right? Yeah. That's the big one. Yeah.
That was a big learning curve. But it was like, we're not going to turn down some very significant orders from people because, that would be very short-sighted of us to do that. So since then, we've gotten better at, figuring out our costing based on how much of our business is wholesale, which is, a healthy part of our business is wholesale. Yeah. So that's definitely the biggest learning curve probably.
I'd say to answer your first question, we just figured it out.
Yeah.
Like we had no idea what we were doing. We were about to get on a call with a buyer from like a major retailer.
Yeah.
And I remember calling my best friend from home. She's a buyer. And I was like, give me
everything.
Like the rundown. Like I need merchandising 101 right now.
Yeah.
What is a wholesale cost? What is a margin? What's a markup?
Totally.
Like, what is a retailer discount if you're a major retailer versus a smaller retailer?
I think I blocked that out.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you did. But then like 30 minutes after that call with my best friend, we got on like a pitch with the retailer and we just like acted like we knew what we were talking about.
Totally. I know
It has been a series of us acting like we know what we're talking about.
Totally.
We don't. We're just figuring it out.
And then someone like
Googling it.
And then someone being like, well, can we, you know, we want to order this by this date and it has to be packed this way, shipped this way.
Yeah.
It has to have this tag on it, you know, all these compliance rules.
Totally.
And we're like, yep, got it. And then we're freaking out. We're like, how are we going to do this? You know?
Yeah. And that's especially for big retailers. Because I've seen that difference for a boutique store versus, of course, a big retailer. And the margins are a little different too. It depends on how much, you know, power they have.
Yeah.
So I share that because I just acknowledge it's not glamorous as much, right? Because I know the behind the scenes too. And when I learned that, I kind of then re-strategized aiming for like boutique lifestyle stores for like the card game and journal. But, you know, I once thought like, ooh, Target would be cool or Anthropo, you know, so
it would be,
right? But like the cost is a little different and like the requirements are way different than a cute actual like luxe lifestyle store in New York, you know, on the streets in West Village or something. You know,
the barriers to entry are high.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like that is for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We just are like trying to figure it out along the way.
Yeah. Googling, reaching out to again, like being in New York, we have some good contacts of people that have started businesses, product based, even like retail clothing businesses in different like categories. They're not activewear or anything, but reaching out to them, asking them, what is an RFID ticket? How do we print them? How do we make them? And neither of us coming from retail, we've really leaned on some people that were willing to give us help.
Yeah.
Like our wholesale rep.
Yeah, of course.
She's been like massively helpful.
Yeah.
And such a champion of ours. But at the end of the day, like it's our business. And sometimes people that you work with have different goals than you do as the business owner. And so we are just constantly like checking in with ourselves, being like, does this fit the vision that we have for the brand? Does this fit the big picture?
Yeah.
Is this, you know, in the direction we're trying to go? And like, we're just very big, like gut instinct girls.
Yeah. Right. Did you guys ever have any fears or like conversations around, you know, how busy the market is for athleisure and like athletic wear? Like what has been the thinking process behind that and overcoming that in the process of getting yourself into stores and just bringing daughter lessons to market?
Yeah, I mean, of course it exists.
Yeah.
But I personally have always had this like naive sense of faith in us and our point of view being so different than everyone else's.
Totally.
And like the idea that you can go to Juice Generation and get your favorite smoothie.
Right.
And then you can understand the ingredients of that smoothie and go home and replicate it at your apartment with the exact same ingredients, but it tastes different.
Yes.
Why is it different? It's because Juice Generation made it.
Yeah.
And that's their thing. And they bring a different point of view and they're doing something that is slightly different from everyone else. And it works.
Yeah.
And I've always felt like we have a very clear point of view
in the market.
And we're just like scratching the surface. But of course, there's so much.
Right.
It's so loud. There's so much competition. We're doing it in New York where it seems like everyone has a brand nowadays. And like, you know, I heard someone say like, my little sister has a brand. She's 12. And I'm like, good for your little sister. Like,
crazy.
That's amazing. Maybe I should meet with her. But there's room. That's another thing.
Yeah.
The scarcity mindset of it all is something that we talk about often. And making sure we know that there's enough room for everybody to exist, because the second you start thinking there's not enough for you, then I truly believe that the outcomes start to show that.
Yeah.
So just kind of putting our blinders on and like Caroline said, checking in with ourselves and making sure what we're designing, what we're producing is all really in alignment with what we picture DL to be in 5-10 years.
Yeah.
So staying like true to who we are as designers, sisters, brand owners.
Totally.
And then just like keeping on the blinders and going one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Knowing that we're making every decision with a big picture mindset.
Right. Another brand's success is not our failure.
No.
100%.
If anything, like we're so vigilant of what everyone else is doing and like we're learning from X, Y, and Z and adapting it in our own way.
Yeah. What would you say has been the best investment for the business, whether that's PR or having certain, you know, reps or team members, whatever that looks like? What do you feel like actually made the best impact for your product business?
Such a good question.
No, that's such a good question.
I'd say product first.
Okay. Like the quality of
improving
product?
the product.
Ah, okay.
When we first launched, we were at a different manufacturer.
Yeah.
And I think it was great because we just launched out of the gate and it did well.
Yeah.
But Lizzy and I knew immediately that the product itself needed to get better.
Okay.
And so investing in the product and finding like an incredible manufacturer and diversifying across a few manufacturers.
Yeah.
Really getting into like the weeds of this industry and knowing every single thing about this industry. Using it to our advantage.
Yeah.
I feel like that's been the biggest investment because you can do all the marketing in the world and you can know everyone in the world, but like Megan Roop isn't going to wear the stuff if it's not good.
That's so true. Yeah.
So, and
Melissa Wood won't wear it unless it's good.
And she does.
Yeah.
So we're always very, very, very hard on ourselves and the product. And like, I don't want to put it in front of so-and-so if it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
So
I would say that, but also the investment, which is actually reframing what we were talking about earlier on the, dip that we might have taken at first in our margins with wholesale, like that actually was an investment. Like that was us allowing the access of an Anthropologie, of a Nuuly, to share our product with their customers in a way that we did not have that reach.
Yeah.
Like we don't spend any money on paid ads right now. We don't do any Facebook meta ads. Right. So for us, we invested in our wholesale business, allowing so many customers to get their hands on our product that we wouldn't have had reach to otherwise.
Right.
Totally agree.
Right. Yeah. It's funny that you guys say that because I feel like that was actually the similar approach that I had with like the merchandise side of the card game and the journal. And I know a lot of e-com brands definitely do the ads approach and maybe just like the whole marketing side. But I think there's definitely a lot of less conversations around the impact of being in really quality retailers, like you guys said, because I think it just depends on the industry and like what you're doing and your long-term goal. Yeah. But I definitely can't recall someone else also emphasizing like the actual impact and investment because of the margins in, wholesale,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think, the landscape has changed even in the last couple of years in terms of direct to consumer. Yeah. Only a few years ago, direct to consumer was like this shiny buzzword where anyone could like start a brand and launch a business and you could reach these people and keep your costs super low. Yeah. Your profit would skyrocket. But there's so much going on nowadays and people are so over consumed by like all of this content and all of these things. And so for us, like going back to the root of retail has been really successful in terms of wholesale, but also really great brand partnerships, collaboration, and really like in-person events and community stuff has been major for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As much as it is difficult, like I said, like lugging all of the stuff for a pop-up, it is so worth it because some of our best like DL community people are the ones that we've met at a pop-up just by chance, by happenstance, because they connect with the brand, they connect with Caroline and I, and then they buy something, they follow us, and then they come buy something again, which is really how we've grown. And compared to the Anthropologies, the larger brands, like we cannot keep up with the ads that they, the ad spend.
Totally.
It's not even about keeping up. I think it's just about having a three-dimensional approach. And like, for example, Glossier, the queen of direct-to-consumer brands, they sort of like created this D2C world. They launched in Sephora this year. Like they went back to wholesale. Of course, they're doing it in a strategic retail partnership way where it makes sense for their brand. Yeah. They're figuring out that like they need to be every single place that their customer is.
Yes.
And so I think that's kind of our approach.
Yeah. Okay, so let's switch gears into personal life because it's like I'm thinking of like all like the business, the things that like, the pop-ups and like all the time consuming that it requires to be entrepreneurs and to be brand owners. How do you guys do personal life? And I'm actually just curious myself too, because I think it's fun to hear fellow entrepreneurs, in a similar age and just like life chapter to like hear what you guys do in like terms of your morning routine, like your daily routine, how you guys structure your day, because like it can be lonely at times too. I'm sure it's like a little bit more fun for you guys as sisters. You guys can like connect and like keep each other accountable and things like that. But I think in general the entrepreneurial journey is lonely and also often misunderstood, especially with friends, like, you know, college friends, things like that. Like they just, you know, like they just don't get it. And so these are things that I don't really get to talk about with my high school best friend or college best friends that live in the city.
Yeah.
It's like just something I just don't talk about at dinner, you know, but it's like the next day,
but you're like bursting.
I know.
How's it going? It's good.
I know. That's really it though.
Melting down, but I'm good.
Yeah. That's kind of it though. Like I don't know if it's really healthy. I'll speak for myself on this point. I could probably do better, but sometimes it's actually easier for me to compartmentalize in the way that when I'm with my friends, I really don't want to talk about work. Like
totally.
It's not really worth me opening up and explaining everything. I have Caroline for that, which you know, it's thank God. So when I'm with my friends, I really just want to be like laughing, having fun, talking about other things. So personal life is tricky. I have to say no to things sometimes. Like if people want to go get dinner on a Wednesday, I might have to say no. I'm also still teaching like 4 nights a week. Totally. So I'm really intentional with my time.
Yeah.
But that being said, I mean, my friends are what make me happy, and like being with them really fills up my cup to be able to go back to my desk and like zone in. So it's still a balance, but that's how I kind of am navigating that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
I think it's quality over quantity for sure. There's just, like Lizzy said, we have less and less time. And so like how we're spending it and with who is just
more important.
Yeah.
And like there is no work-life balance. Our work is our life and our life is our community, which means we're seeing people at workout classes who are now our friends, who are trainers who are now our friends, who are, you know, also wearing the brand.
Yeah.
And we're also getting coffee with them to talk about like consulting stuff. It's all like intertwined in the best way, because I do feel like that's a sign of like us living our truly like authentic lives.
Yeah.
If I had like I don't know, I felt like in the past I had such a, you know, corporate side and then like such another side.
Right.
And that was a sign to me that like I was really not like doing something that made me happy.
Yeah.
But now we are.
Where they blend together.
Yeah.
Totally. I've always
feels organic.
Yeah, and I've always felt like where you really find true life fulfillment is when both are one and the same. And it's interesting because I've noticed that people who maybe work in corporate or have like that 9 to 5 and then like their personal life, they often think that's crazy to say, because they're like, why would I want the two to be the same? But like you guys said, it is an actual blessing to be able to have people that you see at workouts or your pop-up events and they're actually friends, or you know, like you could actually get coffee with them or like, you know, get dinner with them at some point because they're friends, but also you guys work in the same industry and you guys could collaborate or intertwine in some way. And I think that's like the beauty of it, is like when you're going to dinner and like talking to people that are related to your industry, it's not personal life only, right? It's also like work and play.
Right. I mean, a really good example of that is the launch that we did last month with Katie Sheely Scanlon of the Sculpt Society. Genuinely became friends with her because I was taking her class. We were taking her class. We genuinely became friends. We were hanging out with her. That's before we even had a brand.
Yeah.
And then she would always, once we started the brand, she'd always be like, so what are you guys talking about? What are you guys designing? What do you guys, can you show me any sneak peeks? And then she started wearing the brand. She started buying the brand without us sending it to her. We're
also just very like much cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
And, like family values, grew up very similar, and like it felt like an instant connection.
Right. Yeah.
And so it made the collaboration so much more fun, I think, is Lizzy's point.
Yeah. So then we got to create work out of something that was like a friendship. I don't know. It just shows you how the two worlds collide
100%.
if you are doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Oh, and like all of a sudden, like my personal life might be a little bit more dull, but like I enjoy it so much more because I'm surrounded by people who are like-minded, and like my girlfriends are now the ones that like we want to get up early and do a workout, and we'd rather catch up over like a workout and coffee than like a drink and like being on the Lower East Side somewhere that I lost my wallet 6 years ago. Like, thank you. I have no interest done that.
I love that you guys say that too, because I've always, and I feel like it's hard to find, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I feel like it can be hard to consistently find like-minded women who are down for, I don't know, that 6 a.m. walk or that 7 a.m. workout, whatever that looks like, because I come across people, but like to like meet people and like actually become friends and like things like that, it's hard. And especially when that's your lifestyle, you know? And so like, I feel like that's an element that I don't definitely get to talk about as much when it comes to how like lonely it can be when like you want this for yourself, you enjoy that lifestyle, but it's hard to find other people because sometimes it's like a little extreme if you like to go on a morning walk at like 6 or 7, you know, it's like who's down to go and like get juice after. And it's like the one friend I know, it's like she's a fitness influencer who's like, comes to town like every once in a while, so it's like, you know, so it's like things like that where I feel like it's missing from the conversation sometimes.
I mean, I don't know if you were just asking for a suggestion, but I'm going to give you one. I would say a walk in and of itself might be a little isolating in order to like meet someone. But like I've always found like going to Pilates or like going to like Tracy Anderson or going to a Sculpt Society class, whatever. Then I'm really talking to those girls. And like, then we're really friends. And then all of a sudden, like you're joking about the instructor. And then all of a sudden you're like, you want to grab coffee after? And then you see each other in the same place. Whereas like it can sprout from like the actual class. And then like you're going on a walk. You know, once a month together and like getting coffee. But maybe a class is like more conducive to
meeting like-minded people that are like social.
I feel like it's just sometimes hard. Like, so it's funny because I love going up to people, but sometimes like post Soul Cycle or post Solid Core, everyone's like out the door, like, you know, so because I usually do like a 7 a.m. class, so sometimes people are really like, I gotta go type.
I guess in the one instance of natural Pilates down here, that it's just full of like regulars. Like I see the same people in my 7 a.m. Thursday class every single week, and then you know, you get the courage to be like, so what'd you do this weekend? Or you know, you say one thing and then the dialogue grows. But I would probably agree that not every boutique fitness studio has that type of you know, atmosphere.
You're always welcome to come to whatever.
I'm so down.
We'll just immediately introduce you to anyone that we know. For sure.
I love that.
It's so funny you mentioned that though, that like you are a little bit like, oh, I don't want to bother someone or introduce myself if they're on their way out. Because Lizzy and I had a scenario at like a work event this week where we were like totally out of our element. Like we were in a really important room and we were like, what are we doing here? Type of thing. And everyone was like 10 to 15 years our senior. And they were all these like powerhouse women, like VCs, neuroscientists at like Weill Cornell downtown, and like celebrities, and they're all like in our industry. And Lizzy and I are like, so where do we start?
I know.
Like what is going on? And like I think it's been a while since we've felt like so out of place in a room. But it was like we were noticing how these other women were just shameless with going up to people and being like, hi, I'm so and so, what do you do? How are you here? How are you connected here? And then I was like, oh my God, we should be doing that. Hi, I'm so like it's scary, especially when you start to get comfortable in the rooms that you're in. But like it took us being in another room where we were like, whoa. But
or as it pertains to like the, you know, post Solid Core, post Soul Cycle, I do think that the people that you're wanting to go up to are probably feeling the same way. Like they're craving some sorts of sense of community. That's why they're there. They're probably nervous to say that or speak out and say that, you know, hey, I recognized you from like the class last week. What did you think about this music? Whatever. So I do think as uncomfortable, like nervous you could be, like just making the first move in a dynamic like that can really pay off, and then you just start to build from there.
100%.
They're probably in their head just as much as you are.
That's so true. How have you guys experienced dating here, especially because you guys have lived here for many years? So I'm actually curious to know. And like how, and like balancing it per se with like all like the work life and everything that you guys do, like how do you make time for it at this current chapter? Is it something you set aside?
It's so funny, like I'm definitely a long-term relationship girl. And when I moved here, I was in a long-term relationship pretty quickly, and that lasted for a while, which was great. But it wasn't until I like ended up ending that relationship, starting this business, and quitting my full-time job all within 6 months. And I just had like a reset personally. And I was like, I want everything different. I want blah, blah, blah. So yeah, I would say it's different, like jumping out into the world. It's been a couple years now for me, but like, I don't know. I think it's fun. Only recently I've kind of like reframed it in a way where it's like, New York is so small.
Yeah.
And every single person that I'm meeting is like an opportunity for them to like know what we're doing, maybe connect us with someone else, or just like learn a little bit about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I oftentimes like, trust me, there's been some bad ones, but like I oftentimes just leave being like, okay, that was great. And like if I ran into that person in a meeting in like 10 years, I would be like stoked about it.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I had a serious relationship in college and then thereafter, like 6 years, which is crazy to think about now.
That is a while.
Yeah. But it didn't work out. And I'm really, in hindsight, grateful for that because it did allow me so much time to put into this.
Yeah.
It was a long distance relationship. So I was very much compromising weekends and weeks at a time. So to be able to stay planted in New York and spend more time building this business was great. Now dating is like ebbs and flows. I feel like there will be some times where I'm really in the, mindset of booking dates and trying to get out there. And then I won't do that for like 4 or 5 months and then I'll try again. That being said, I think I know what I want a lot more than I did in my previous relationships.
Yeah.
So I come to the table as a different dater than I did previously, which is nice.
Do you guys feel like being entrepreneurs has influenced that knowing what you want when it comes to dating more so than maybe if you were like living your previous life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. I just feel like it forces you to sort of like take creative control over your life and where you want to go.
Yeah.
And it applies to everything. It disrupts like everything you thought you knew about yourself.
Totally.
Being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And that includes like dating. And I feel like I can say this for Lizzy too, but like I have no interest in like dating someone just to date someone or settling.
Yeah, likewise.
I'm in no rush. Like
likewise.
I feel like that would be the cherry on top at this point in my life. And like we have so much amazing stuff going on.
Yeah.
That I feel like if someone's going to come in and like add value and like I need to be like really like into like what they're doing, what they bring to the table and like mentally like, oh my God, this person's amazing.
Yeah.
Then I'm all in. But if not, like we've got a lot on our plate.
Yeah.
So
it goes back to that like being intentional with our time.
Yeah.
Do I really want to spend it with someone that I am not into, or do I want to spend it with my girlfriends that I, don't get to see that much anyway? So it just goes back to that where you're putting your free time as an entrepreneur, which doesn't really exist. Free time to make time to date or be with friends.
When it comes to intentionality with dating, what do you guys look for like off the bat in terms of like checking to see if this, even on a first date, is this aligned enough or being worth my time for a second date?
Think like actions.
Yeah.
Just like, did they plan something? Did they show up? Did they do what they say they were going to do?
Yeah.
Are they like following up for another one in terms of just like a lot of people saying they're going to do stuff?
Yeah.
And a lot of texting without not a lot of like action or follow through. Someone like showing up and you can tell they're like looking for someone to like build something with is like, I think what I look for.
I love that.
And then just like a really like rock solid person who you can kind of like consult with because life is short, but it's also long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially who you choose to do life with, which personally for me, I think when it comes to dating, that's my intention as well, is I don't like to, I've had my fun already in my early 20s, and so I think it is a bit of a waste to go, on a second or third date with someone that you're meh about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's so like interesting because like some girls will say that like go on the date with the guy you're meh about like a little bit more because heard that develops.
Yeah.
So
or like date till you hate is one of the things people say
because you hate them.
Yeah, because if there's like a little something that can grow, or like seeing the person in different elements might, grow certain, attraction or what be it, but it's interesting.
Well, I feel like there's a difference though between meh and then I want to see him one more time to like get more clarity.
Intrigued.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like intrigued, I need to know more. Versus I wasn't feeling it.
Okay, there's a very
totally
difference.
Because I think yes, like no one's gonna always have it off the first date. Like, oh, this was it. But there's also usually a difference between, okay, I want to see more on the second date. It will give me more clarity if we're like a good fit.
Totally.
Or like, we're just not a good vibe.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also, it's another interesting thing. I do feel like I used to sort of like hide the entrepreneur part of me on dates.
Ooh, I was going to ask you about this one too.
In an effort to like please a little bit.
Yes.
But now I'm like realizing that a lot of these guys say they want someone that's like ambitious and driven, but they actually don't. Like when push comes to shove and you're like in front of them, like having your shit together, it scares the life out of them.
100%.
And so I'm like, this is the reality. So like, I'm going to lead with this now because I'd rather figure this out today than in 3 weeks when I'm like sort of into you. Yes. And I've like sort of made this thing up in my mind about you just to find out that you're like a total loser.
Yeah.
Like,
or like I've literally been on dates
I'm all about that too.
Where someone's like putting down the fact that I'm an entrepreneur or like makes jokes about my businesses, and I can totally tell it's because they're insecure of what I am bringing to the table.
I've experienced that so many times.
And it's like, it's a shame that you're like on paper everything that I thought I wanted, but the fact that you just made that one comment and then a week later you made it again, putting down me and my business.
Is this actually like
this happened?
Oh no.
And I was like kind of seeing the guy, and then I was like making an excuse for it. I actually didn't tell Caroline at first that he said that because obviously she'd be like,
funny because like your sister's
I was
gonna
like,
say
he
something.
said it, and I was like, that's not funny. Like I really am, betting it all on myself. Like this is my whole life right now.
Yeah.
And then he dared to make like a similar joke like a week later, and I was like,
not me making myself smaller
for you.
For what?
Yeah.
For some, okay, first of all, 6'2".
Yeah.
My ass.
I love
Doesn't
that.
matter if you're putting me down.
Like let's look in the mirror. Like,
totally.
What are you bringing to the table?
Definitely.
Yeah. And I think it speaks a lot about a man's emotional maturity and just general maturity.
Totally.
And I've seen it, I hate to say it. I've dated a lot of men from European culture and other cultures outside of the US. And I have to say that I feel like in observing friends that date in the US and like more American culture guys, there tends to be that like the American guys I feel like tend to be a little bit more intimidated, maybe more so than and I don't know because for example like in France like a lot of women are in the fashion industry or modeling or beauty, and like they all are actually, it's almost emphasized you should have a career or you should be doing something for yourself and not just being small that maybe certain men prefer. Again, I'm not saying all American guys are saying this, but I'll admit like I'll ask a lot of my American guy friends like what their thoughts are, and they'll admit that there's some of that conversation within the American culture, perhaps because of, how women had a lot of opportunities over the past like 20 years in terms of like the rise of feminism and just like shit like that. And so I just noticed that there was more of an acceptance and like almost awe towards like, oh wow, you do that, that's really cool. And they would just ask me more about and then and I've since my college I dated guys who are foreigners, so I've had this experience for like years.
I wonder.
But I just think it's like a cultural acceptance where like over there's just this like women are doing those things more so to them that's normal. If that makes sense.
I would interpret that as, and I want to get your feedback, as culturally, as a culture, maybe like American men feeling like they bring to the table the business thing. Like they're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, protect and provide. And like, if you're coming to them with that, it's like a little bit of like, oh God,
where
what
do
am
I
bringing
stand?
I feel like they might feel a little bit threatened by that because it's like, well, I have to earn my keep. And if you're doing that, then like, I'd rather be with someone who I can at least bring the only thing I know to be true, which is I'm providing, right?
1000%. In my opinion, I see that more prevalent here. And again, it's not like anyone's fault, but I will say like my last boyfriend was from Russia, and in Eastern European culture, like who they are, it doesn't change whatever the woman is. Like Russian women, Eastern European women, they're very hardworking as well. Like they're just
Russian.
Yeah. Are you guys Russian?
My mom is 100% Russian.
Oh no way! Do you guys speak Russian as well?
No. Like church Russian.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Like that. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. So it's part of the culture to respect and also just like love that about the women. And so that's why it's like just normal to them. And so maybe in the US, because we're a younger country and there's just a lot of things that like wavered, in the developing years of America, or when I say years, I mean like over the past couple hundred years, centuries, but it's just like in Italian culture and French culture and in the UK and in Eastern Europe, it's just different. Like how men still show up that way and they're not intimidated by women. And again, you guys might see this in your own mom then, because like that's just part of who the Slavic culture. That's and I was raised by like Russian coaches, and so I have a lot of that mentality, which is probably why later on in my adult life I was like attracted to Europeans, because I just like would speak. I speak some Russian too, so that's why it's just like came to me, and I never experienced that. But then when I did date American guys, there was a little bit I was a little timid about sharing like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur and I do this. Like there was a little bit questioning. I remember a guy that was 12 years older than me who's American and a CEO. He was like, so like tell me your margins, and he just like challenged me. Yeah, it was crazy. This was 3 years.
Margins.
It was 3 years ago, but it was just fascinating because I saw the difference in like people with awe towards like, oh, that's so awesome that you do that, versus like challenging me on like, oh, what do you really do? And it was just like looking back and then having this conversation now, it's kind of funny to hear like you bring that up, because I'm like, I forgot about it for a while, but it happened.
Yeah, it's ironic because I feel like if they would just like sit in their power as like an overall partner and like a supporter, then we would be so much more inclined to like let down our guard and maybe not lead with our business mind and like lead in with the feminine and let the masculine stay in like the business world. Yeah. But it's because like they're overcompensating in that way that we feel like not accepted.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Not accepted and like not understood. Right. It was how I felt like with, again, it's just some of the American culture is just, and my mom would be fearful too. Just like, you might look like you're too much for a guy. And I'm like, and then as I grew up, I was like, I won't be too much for the right guy.
Exactly.
Right?
This is all just meaning that we haven't met the right person that accepts us where we're at.
Yeah. And I've seen it. And I've seen it even with Kira, who we were talking about earlier, her partner, and it's just like, they exist out there. I'm not just saying I'm pretty sure American, but I'm just saying like, they exist, but like there's people that do appreciate and actually are your biggest cheerleader, like that's my fucking wife,
of course.
Like that's hot.
My last boyfriend would have like, I would have been like, I want to go to the moon. He would have been like, hell yeah. Like,
oh, that's amazing.
He was like, thought that I could have done anything. And like, I remember yours was the same way. Like when we wanted to start this company, they were like rooting us on, and that's because they were so secure in themselves these days. Yes. That like us shining didn't threaten them at all. Yeah. And they thought it was like hot. Yes. Obviously those relationships didn't work out for like other reasons. Totally. Just grow.
But that's how you know, like, okay, that trait exists. Yeah. And definitely. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah. And which is great, because sometimes there are girls that never had that yet or never dated someone. So then they're always like, oh shit, should I hide this part of me because I haven't dated a guy yet that was like down for this,
Yeah,
so then that
can
be
that. So I'll save anyone out the time and just tell them don't, because you're eventually going to get to that. Yeah. And then it'll spoil what like you could have found out a few weeks earlier. So
yeah. It's crazy. Okay, last few questions. We're going to do a few from the card game. Fun. Okay, well, speaking of romantic partners, name top 3 traits your ideal romantic partner will have.
Intelligence, humor, and confidence. Not security, but I'm not ego or like arrogance, but confidence and secure himself.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Loyalty, compassion, and a like sense of self.
Ooh, I like, those are great. You guys are
You get to say yours?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll say mine. I was asking you guys. Top 3 traits: loyalty, charismatic, and thoughtful.
Oh, that thoughtful's a good one.
Yeah, thoughtful.
Combine all.
Yes, I know.
Yes, right? So we have 9.
Make a big list. Where do you see yourself 3 years from now?
Oh my gosh, 3 years. Married.
Put it out there, sis. Get it out in the universe.
Yes.
Hopefully with a kid in New York.
Do you want to like live full time in New York?
Yeah. Love that. Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah.
At least for a little bit until I like absolutely can't. But I would love to.
Me too.
We have some girlfriends doing it, and it's just like so badass.
Yes. Right? Yeah. Maybe we'll be neighbors.
Yeah. And like growing the brand. Yeah. Like being very clear about like our point of view as a brand and growing into some really cool like partnerships. I'd love to branch out into different like categories have an office. That would be great.
Ooh.
Yeah, similarly, like business-wise, just grow the brand. And then personally, just like be in a serious relationship, but also continue the work I've been doing on myself and like the clarity of what I actually want versus what other people want for me. So continuing that.
Amen.
I love that. I love that. I'd say similarly, 3 years from now, I see myself still being based in New York. Hopefully buying a place here by then.
Love that.
I think those are the main things that come to mind, though. Good. And I think 3 years from now. Qualities you look for in like-minded friends.
Like growth mindset. People that want to be better and grow and see life as like a constant journey. And aren't like complacent with just like how they are and what they have. I'd also say like wellness, health, kind of like minded, because that's super important to us. And just like rooted in like good morals and like
totally. I think you were only supposed to say one. So
I
you took mine.
I guess just qualities. Qualities.
You took all mine. No, mostly like the values, like shared values and just a good sense of like self and like a good human, because I feel like as we get older, you just have to surround yourself around like truly good people.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like integrity and honesty just go a long way with friendship. And I don't know, I feel like sometimes long-term friendships can go downhill when the just like trust is broken, or like you can't rely on each other in a way that's ride or die. And so I feel like that's just a big one for like-minded friends.
Integrity is a really good one.
Yeah.
What you do when no one's looking.
100%. Yes.
That's tough. Yeah.
All right. Well, last question, and something I ask every guest on the show, but in reflecting on everything you guys have been through in your life, building the brand, your personal life here in New York, and your family, what would you say ultimately fulfills you in life?
It would be like human connection, probably, whether it be in dance classes or with my friends or working with Caroline. It's really just like human connection fills my cup, not necessarily being like an extrovert, but just really valuing the time I get to spend with other people fills me up.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah, I would say like strong relationships and like pushing myself, or I guess, like testing myself in situations. I feel like that is very fulfilling.
Yeah. And I feel like you guys emphasized that earlier too with your work and how you guys get to work with incredible people that become friends, or friends that become, business related, items. And so I think that really goes to show just how far relationships and meaningful connections go. Because if you don't work with great people, or if maybe there's, an influencer, for example, that's just hard to work with, right? It makes it a little bit more tedious in that process. And so that's why like the quality of the relationships and the people that you get to be with personally and in professional work, really goes a long way.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys for coming on the show. Where can everyone find you, your website, the brand, your personal Insta, if you want to share?
Yeah, we're daughter.lessons.nyc. I'm Caroline_Tierney. She's Lizzy Tierney. You can shop on daughterlessonsnyc.com. We're on Anthropology, Newly, and stay tuned. A very large retailer coming soon. But thank you.
Yes, this was amazing.
So much fun. Talk about like work not feeling like work.
I know. This was awesome.
Amazing.
I love this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Yay.